exciting developments in my experience of my day-to-day life. Um, it's almost as if life is humoring me at this point. I've reached a point, an incident happened where there's a potential shortage of like heating fuel. And due to experience, I just kick into, okay, now I have to find a different option of where to live, because I was used to being given only so much, like an allotment of resources for a time period, and they would always fall short, and I would always be pushed out into having absolutely nothing until some energy, some circumstances took me in, allowed me a certain amount of energy, which always fell short. Just when you get comfortable and you want to trust things, boom, out the door. Well, I knew that if I suddenly was given safe circumstances, it would be overwhelming. I would struggle with I don't deserve it. I would push it away. I wouldn't believe in it and I wouldn't trust it. So life right now is this shortage comes up, and I'm giving these people freedom to just let me go if that's what it's going to come down to, if I'm too much. And instead it was just, it didn't have to be pushed, didn't have to be asked for. It was just, okay, we're prepared, we're going to do this, we're going to take care of this, and just load lifted right off of me. And so I'm slowly being brought into the awareness that the maintaining of my physical circumstances, my well-being, is going to be no problem. It's not going to be an issue with anybody. Anybody who comes into my life and brings resources, they're not going to be like, oh, this is all I can afford, or, I don't want to do this, but you need it. It's not going to be that. It's going to be like taken for granted. Like, why wouldn't they do that? Of course they're going to do that. And of course I should have this. Of course I should have that. And it's funny because I had seen a couple at the laundromat over the summer, and he didn't just, get the bare minimum of what she needed. He got the very top, best, over the top quality stuff so they could get their job done. They were only there because they were on vacation. They were camping up here or something. So it wasn't just go to the store and spend the least amount of money on it or whatever. It was, oh no, it's super quality stuff, the best of everything, bring it in, get the job done, and move along. I was like, that's what I want in my experience. And I have a feeling that's what's coming. I'm just being acclimated to the idea of receiving that. And so that's exciting for me. I no longer have to be uncertain about getting my needs met or how long it's going to last. That's very cool. Since I had the flying lizards, when I lay down and I close my eyes, I just let images pass by, whatever, kind of like watching a movie to get to sleep. And it was the flying lizards and stuff like that. If we're to believe the story of an Anunnaki history, the Earth is just a small part of the original planet, which was occupied by the dragon, the lizard, ancestors, species, and that was destroyed, and the Earth is just what's left of that. So to have the dragon and lizard energy in our experience is valid. It belongs here. This part of our history. They owned the planet. It was theirs. Granted, they were rejects from whatever confederation, whatever um, organization governed all the planets to keep peace and everything like that. Star Wars comes to mind, you know, the Republic. They were cast out of the Republic. They couldn't be a part of it. And the history of the North American and South American domestication is reflective of that. We will not be domesticated energy. Um, if you read, I think it's something like Gun, Steel, and Disease is the name of the book. Um, how when Europeans came over to the Americas, they the animals would not breed in captivity. You know, the people would not be subjected in captivity. The plants, they couldn't even transplant the plants and have them grow. So that's why they had to have all the European livestock brought over just so that they could survive, because it was just too wild. It was too independent. It was just not going to have anything to do with domestication. And of course, that's healthy, because with domestication comes specialization, and sometimes specialization does elevate an experience. You know, somebody who specializes in metals is going to know the nuances of how they work and stuff like that. But as I mentioned before, if you couldn't go out into the wild, that was part of the coming of age rituals, practices, initiations, was go out into the wild, create your own clothing, create your own shelter, create your own food source, and get your own vision from spirit. Then you were not an adult. You couldn't participate as a full member of the tribe or the community. And way back when there was a larger frontal lobe, you didn't have to have specialization, because the intuition and the nuances could immediately access all the elaborate involvement in each mineral. And so we didn't have to have specialization. With the specialization and the limitation that this domestication created, that's where imbalance and unhealthiness and everything like that came in. I'm just caught up in the beauty of intuiting everything, anything as needed. I remember being in an apartment complex. So the apartment buildings created a square, and then there was, grass in between the sidewalks, and there was a rock, just a big rock out there. So they were like ornamental rocks. And I could see within one was a resting shape, shaped like a human at rest, all curled up. So there was a consciousness resting in that rock. And one of my daughters, my second born, we would go to the local health food store, and the woman who ran it, had like a basket with, crystals and stones and stuff in it. And my daughter would go in and she'd be like, "Oh, there's a teacher in this one." And, that is natural. That was the intention for the human experience. That's what evolved out of the earth, is the awareness of absolutely everything and the nature of everything and the nuances and everything. To walk up to a plant and just receive its medicine without eating it, without turning it into a concoction. That's natural. That's what's natural. That's what was meant to be. That's how we evolved. But when these foreign entities came, they didn't have that experience. They had no context for such an experience. They had to tear it up, rip it up, build it up, burn it, consume it, and then move on to another planet experience. They had no concept for our reality and how we lived intuitively, naturally, with everything. And so what we had and what we lived was eternal and was capable of having an infinite number of experiences and variations to it without effort, without construct of thought that we work with today. I'm just enjoying just the flow, like the rinsing out of having to construct a thought to explain. I'm just enjoying the awareness of our true nature, of how we're supposed to live, what our life experience can be. And that is very much in alignment. Everybody talks about, oh, we're moving to 4D, we're moving to 5D. We can have these physical bodies and have a 5D experience. Intuition, the seeing between spaces, comprehending what's there, intuiting what's there, that's natural. That's how we're supposed to be. And that's probably why I haven't been able to establish myself in the program. Everybody follows a recipe in our society. You do this much at school, you memorize these answers, you make these choices, you're going to be successful. I could start on that path. I could be very good on that path. I mean, any job I quit, they've always asked me to come back. I learn very quickly. I'm very efficient. I'm very, and I take self-initiative, not an invasive. I don't take over. I work with, I enhance, I expand. But then it's just like, all right, I did this and nobody around me is changing. They're just expecting me to do everything for them or to put up and tolerate these limitations being put on me, that I am demonstrating that those limitations don't serve. So you can't appreciate. I always liken it to somebody seeing this beautiful, wild, free-spirited horse. They love its spunkiness, like, oh, that passion, that vibrancy. And so they catch it, they take it, they break it, and then they just lose all interest in it, because now it's just like all these other horses, but even meaner, even sadder, more depressed, just fun, they beat the life out of it. And so it is not what they appreciated to begin with, and they don't understand why. Like, oh, I made this mine, now why isn't it still this vibrant, wonderful thing? Well, that vibrancy and stuff, I just imagine that, so that doesn't exist. That can't be real, because this is what it really is. It's really this depressed, unpleasant, miserable thing. So they believe that what they thought they saw is fake, when that's not the fact. The fact is, they destroyed what they loved, what they saw, and they appreciated. And so I've had that experience throughout my life. That's where the goddess Epona resonated with me. She was, the worship of the goddess Epona involved a king getting a white mare, having sex with her and killing and eating her. And so I could totally relate to that as my life experience. People just getting enthralled and then, fuck her, devour her, destroy her, throw her bones to the dogs. Like, that was my experience in life. Like, no more, man. Avoid being broken, play the game for just as long as it takes to get the resources that I need and get the F out. Go enjoy some time in the wilderness with freedom. Get it every chance that I can, every way that I can, where my conscience is not compromised. That used to be my experience, but that's not my experience anymore. So back to the dragon and lizard energy. Um, Last spring, I never really worked much with dragons, but last spring I got a sense of how they fly in a place, a space. I don't want to say between times because they affect time. Dragonflight affects time. And that's very much associated with the helicopters. Like, at one point last year, I was looking out from my camper onto the range there, the bombing range, the practice range, and it was wave after wave of helicopters coming over. And that's the military wanting to screw with time. And basically the dragons abandoned that role, and it's left to humanity just stumbling through it. They're preventing humanity from understanding how it is that these machines affect time and how they could purposely affect time. Right now, they're just kind of having fun, letting human beings and their attitude that these human beings don't care, and the spirits in these human beings don't care about the consequences or the repercussions coming from behind them about screwing with time using this machinery. All they care is that it disrupts what they perceive as the enemy. So, like, one country, they'll just send helicopters over to just mishmash so that the people who deal with, metaphysical energy, who are trying to use magic and sorcery and wizardry and all that, just to disrupt them. They don't care. And the dragon energy, the lizard energy is just getting, they don't care. They really let them destroy themselves. It's just, and I've had that experience before. That just resonates with me. You do what you can to help people. They don't listen to you. They don't, they want to take from you, but they don't want to respect how to treat what you give them. For example, when I went to Montana, the head of the Oath Keepers, Elias Alias, we were talking about different ways of helping people, and one exercise is the mirroring exercise. So if somebody says to you, "You are this," you turn around and say, "You feel like you are," and so you just mirror them, because typically that's what we're projecting, is how we feel about ourselves at other people. You do this for this reason. Well, we do those things for those reasons. And so his first response was not, "Wow, this can be helpful for me." This was, the words came out of his mouth, "I know a few women I could use that exercise on." So somebody like that, that's the people in power right now. That's basically how the dragon and the lizard energy is working with them. Are they evil? Are they... No, they're fucking with them because they deserve to be fucked with. They don't deserve to know the true use, the true powers, the true skills, and how to manipulate things, because they don't manipulate things with good of all in mind. It's always just, how do I hurt somebody else with this? And that's a very different concept of, like, this one woman, she does readings, and she starts off ringing her little bell. Oh, no Arcon energy here, no Arcon energy here. Like, you say the name, you're bringing them, you're inviting them. Girl, you don't even know you're working for them, okay? It's just, it, it's just funny. Very funny. Just sit back and watch what people do to themselves, thinking that they have, this little bit of knowledge or wisdom that, we share with them. And then they go and they make a disaster out of it. They think they're so righteous. Oh, I have this piece of knowledge. I have this piece of insight. She's a genius. She gets all this stuff accomplished. Like, I'll talk about something and experiences to show an example, a living illustration that people can relate to and say, oh, now I comprehend this. Whereas they use it for totally different intentions. Like, they'll talk about other people to gossip, to spread a bad perspective of that person and what they're doing, twist it, make it evil, to isolate them and punish them. Like, well, you talked about somebody. Like, I didn't talk about somebody. I gave an example of what happens when anybody does this, because I saw it in these circumstances. And it's not to make this person look bad. It's to show an example of, this is how it happens. This is the consequences of it. So they very much have that energy. And it's those people and that energy that you can't help but just sit there and laugh when everything just backfires on them. It's, you can't feel sorry for them because they're doing it to themselves. They're not listening to you, and so you just gotta sit back and you gotta laugh at them. So the other experience that I had with the dragon energy was a more ancient, more peaceful, the more primitive times, when, like, the dragon wings worked like solar panels, absorbing the light to create heat, and then they would use that heat to melt the snow on the mountains, which would send the water down into the valleys, and the people would get their crops and their nourishment and their festive times. And then the dragons would have their nesting season, and when that was all over, it was allowed, the mountains to get covered with ice again, for snow to fall, and for everything to rest and to dream and come up with what they want to see the next season. So there was a time when dragons were a part of our physical reality, in a good way, in a good place. They were honored for their role in it, and everything was in balance. And then came those other guys that thought themselves gods, and this isn't good enough. What they see going on down here, they need these resources. They're going to strip the planet. There's no sense to what they saw going on this planet. No appreciation whatsoever. And so the rest of history from there. So far, that's what I've gotten from connecting with dragon consciousness to this point. And I thought I would share it because there's so much which I haven't read through, I haven't memorized or connected too much with. Just doesn't resonate with me. Like, if you look up, the different colors of dragons, what they mean, it's the typical new age stuff. There's a stone for everything. There's, every color is, related to something. So I figured I would offer another more day-to-day experience, real life experience of what life with dragons was and what it can be for us, and basically what's going on today with this whole the lizard thing. So there you go. Another offering for another day.